How's it going, everybody? It's Mikey B Cards here on a random night during the week, and I wanted to talk to you about grading cards. It is one of the questions I get asked the most. I do not, just as a forewarning, consider myself to be a grading expert. By any sense of the means, I only know about this much. But the kicker is hopefully this much that I know, and what I want to share to you with you in this video helps you to better understand about grading and answer some basic questions, starts a conversation about grading, or maybe you won't learn anything and I just appreciate you watching the video. So I want to cover a whole range of topics tonight. I want to talk a little bit about why you would grade a card, talk about the differences in the companies that do the grading. I want to talk about scores. I want to talk about where you can go to get cards graded, costs associated with it, times, and so forth. Like I said, I will do my best to share everything that I have learned, which has been a lot since I've started collecting. I've got back my first couple of subs for grades, both with BGS and PSA. So I'll share with you some of the cards that I got graded. I'll tell you the reasons and rationale as to why I graded them, because different cards have different reasons. And yeah, we'll go from there. And then hopefully if there's a lot of questions in the chat, or not in the chat, but in the comments below, I'll make a secondary video and get some answers for everybody as well. So if you haven't already done so, click down there in the bottom right, hit subscribe. There's a comment section below. Please tell me anything that you might have learned that maybe I didn't cover in this video, something that you want to share. If you think I'm full of bunk with something that I say that as well. But please share the knowledge. Let's all learn a little bit more about grading. So first and foremost, why would you ever grade a card? What's the whole point of doing any of this? There's obviously a cost associated with it. There's a time where the card will be away from you. Why on earth would you want to do this? Well, there's several different reasons that you might invest or take a look at grading. One of those might be that perhaps you've got a card in your personal collection, your PC, that you just want to encapsulate in a graded slab. Because it looks really cool, or you just want to, somewhere down the road you might think, maybe I might sell this, but even if it's a card that you think you're going to keep for a long time, there is something really, really cool about a graded card. So, for instance, here's a Dalvin Cook rookie Nike swoosh from National Treasures. It's number 1 of 2. This is a PC card of mine. I don't intend to have it go anywhere. It's going to stay with me as long as I have my collection. It's one of my favorite cards. I loved it. I sent it in for grading because I wanted to, one, see how it graded, which usually you wouldn't send in a National Treasures card, but I did. But also, I thought it looked so cool to have it in the slab, and I love it. I love it in this much more than I did when it was in a top loader or one touch. So I did that one purely for me. Now, for those of you that like to move cards and sell them, I will tell you that usually, not always, but usually investing in grading your card will result in you being able to sell your card at a higher value. Now, a lot of that's going to depend, of course, on how the card is graded, the score that it gets. But usually if a card grades really, really well, you can obviously expect a higher dollar amount when you go to sell the card. Now, there's a lot of variables in there that might affect the value, but for the most part, a high graded card is always going to sell higher than a card that is not graded. Obviously, you can grade a card and get a bad grade. If that happens, it actually might be in your best interest to take the card out of the slab. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Let's talk a little bit about the two companies that do grading primarily. And I'm going to talk about specifically modern cards. So if you're looking in the vintage market or anything like that, that's probably a whole nother video, and I'll be honest, I don't know a whole heck of a lot about that. So I'll leave that one to another expert to talk to you about. I want to talk specifically about grading modern cards. And my examples here are all going to be football because that's what I collect. So your two main companies that do grading are going to be PSA, and their slabs look like this. It's got kind of that white label up at the top. It's thin, it's nice and small. It's got your QR code up there. As you'll see, this is a Dalvin Cook Black Finite card that I pulled out of Prism. Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather, pardon the coughs. But I had it slabbed in PSA, and I'll tell you why I went with PSA versus Beckett for this particular card a little bit later. But this is what it looks like. Your grade is going to be right up here. You can see the number 10, and that it's a gem mint. And then information about the card is going to be on the left side there. So it's a Panini Prism, Dalvin Cook, Black Finite 101. So that's what your typical PSA card is going to look like. Your standard Beckett, also known as BGS, is usually going to look like this. It's obviously a little bigger. It doesn't look that much bigger kind of side by side, but it is slightly thicker than a standard PSA. Both of them are very secure. They'll keep your cards very well protected. That's another reason why you can grade them. But what Beckett does is they give you 2 grades depending on the card. It might be 1 grade just in that it's a card without an autograph, but you can also get your autograph graded with Beckett. So the first score that you see there, the 9, that's going to be an algorithm based on the centering, the edges, the corners, and the surface. So that's all those numbers that you see right there. The higher those numbers are, the better the algorithm is going to score your overall card. 10 is the highest score that you can achieve. Then your autograph also has a scale of 10 as well. So I'll talk a little bit about what makes an autograph a 10 versus a 9 or 8 or anything else. But also very well protected. I just really think that these cards look spectacular when they're in a graded slab. So that's part of the reason why I got some of them graded. So talked a little bit about the 2 companies. We talked a little bit about the grades, even the style and so forth. So why on earth, outside of maybe selling it for higher money or wanting to encapsulate the card, it looks cool or whatever, why would you really, really want to do this? So for me, I chose it to do a couple different reasons. There are some cards that you're going to see up here that I do intend to sell somewhere down the line. There are some cards up here that I'm going to keep probably for a long time, if not forever. And I wanted them to look cool in a slab versus in a one-touch. I felt that they'd be better protected. So let's talk a little bit about how you can get cards graded. So you can send these cards in to PSA or to BGS directly. There's usually several pricing levels and several time banks that grading companies have. So for instance, Beckett has a 5 business day turnaround that you can do, all the way up to you can send it to them and just say when you get to it, you get to it. Now obviously the faster that you want your card, the more expensive it's going to be. Makes sense, right? Same thing with PSA. They've got subs that take 30 days. They have subs that take longer. My recommendation to you is that if you got a card that's hot on the market, for instance, right now, Contenders football just came out. So if you have a Saquon Barkley or Baker Mayfield that you want to get graded and you want to try to flip for big money, your best bet is to do a fast submission through Beckett, have it back in your hands quickly and get it up on wherever you intend to sell it. If you've got more time, obviously you can do that with Beckett or you can do that with PSA. So the kicker is that these companies, even though they tell you it's a specific amount of time turnaround, sometimes they don't adhere to those times. Beckett, I hear, is a little bit more notorious for lateness when it comes to their longer periods of grading. So what I did when I wanted to grade cards was I did a ton of research. I talked to a lot of people that graded cards frequently, and I found organizations or people that did frequent submissions, and I talked to them and said, you know what, I've done this about 50 times. This is my true turnaround time, so on and so forth. And then that's how I made my decision. So for instance, I used my my Beckett, my BGS submission I did through RBI Crew. Most of you that are on social media probably know them, especially if you're on Instagram. They are famous for doing these 5-day turnaround subs. They were super easy to work with. I did my PSA sub through Card Collector 2, or Ryan, as he's more commonly referred to in Instagram and social media. And Ryan did the PSA sub in about 30 business days. So what I did was I sent him the cards before the holidays, and I just got them back now. So both turnaround times I was very happy with, and they were both very, very close to what I was quoted. The price difference was vastly different. A BGS card in the 5-day turnaround cost me roughly $30 a card versus roughly $17 a card in the PSA. Now, both of them have some additional costs. For instance, if I wanted the people doing the submissions to clean the card, if I wanted them to crack cases, like if they're submitted in one, but I want to submit it to another, they could do that. So there's a lot of extra costs that might be involved if you do some grading. So just make sure that you're aware of that before you get started so you know the true cost per card. And I found that people that do submissions are very open about, hey, this is what you can expect and so forth. Don't forget, too, that you have to pay for shipping to get the cards to somebody and to get the cards back. So with that being said, I'm going to grab something here in my closet. So, how do you ship the cards? How do you get them down to the people that are doing the submission? So, most of these cards were really nice cards, right? I mean, a one-of-one Dalvin Cook, that's not something I would normally just send, in a plain white envelope. I actually sent that in a really nice padded package. Just know that whatever you send to the person doing the submission or to the company themselves, you're not going to see it again. So I didn't want to send all these cards in one touches because I knew I'd be out, 10 one touches. So what was recommended to me is actually these real kind of super thin but stiff Ultra Pro, you can kind of see it right there. Kind of these Ultra Pro little flex holders. They hold a card very, very well, almost any size or whatever. You can keep it in a penny sleeve so that it's well protected. So all I did was stack my cards up, put some cardboard on both sides so that it was well protected, wrapped it in a padded envelope, made sure that there was some extra padding and cushion to it, and then sent it off. So I was a little nervous about doing this, but I was assured that this is the best way to go. These are super cheap and super stiff. They work very, very well when you're sending graded cards in. So the other thing I had to figure out was, okay, what cards do I want to send to grading? Obviously, I could send my entire collection, but I'd end up spending a ton of money doing all the grades. So I thought a little bit about, what makes sense? What are some cards that I know will be a good investment? Those are going to be ones that I want to grade. What are cards that I really, really like and enjoy? I want to grade those for myself. And really kind of came to the conclusion that, all right, here are the 15 cards that I want to get graded. The next thing I did was determine, okay, I need to talk to somebody who's more knowledgeable about this because I don't know if it would be better to send this card to Beckett or send it to PSA. So I met with a friend here at a local card shop, and he kind of gave me the rundown. And here's what he taught me. He said the first thing you need to do if you're going to do grading, especially frequently, is get yourself one of these. So if you're looking at this and you're like, what in the heck is that? Any of you guys or gals out there that have gone to a jeweler probably have seen this magnifier. In fact, it's actually specifically for jewelry. It kicks out. It actually has 2 lenses in it, at least this variation. There's plenty that just have one. I bought this one off of Amazon, one because it wasn't very expensive, but more, on the back side, it actually has an option to turn on an LED light. So when I'm holding it up to a card, I can actually see very, very well what I'm looking at. Even with a bright room, this will bring out a lot of different imperfections when I look at a card. So let me just grab a random card from the back here. So I have this Saquon Barkley Rookie of the Year insert card from Contenders, right? So nothing too super special, but a very, very nice card. Let's say this is one that I would be interested in getting graded. So what are some of the things that I would look for in order to say, all right, this is worth sending in, or maybe I want to think twice about it? Because here's the deal. If you're going to submit a modern card in for grading, if you don't think that you can get a 10, it's probably not worth sending the card in. It really is. Unless the card is super special, or for whatever reason the market really dictates that a graded version of that card is much, much better than a non, and so forth. Because if you send a card in to get graded and you get a crappy grade back, like a 7.5 or an 8 or something like that, you really didn't enhance the value of the card. In fact, actually, you might have hurt it. So what are some of the things to look for? The first thing that I did was I took my little magnifying glass, I got up really, really close to the corners, and obviously you guys aren't going to be able to see that through the camera, but I really inspected the corners really, really strong, and there you can kind of get a little glimpse of it there. Let's see if I can bring it close to the camera and see if you can get it. So there you go, not too bad. So what are you looking for in the corners? You want to ensure that there's no nicks in the corners, it's not folded over. You really want to get something that's sharp and crisp. If the corners, all 4 of them, front and back, look really strong, then that's a good indicator that you're going to get, obviously, a really great grade when it comes to cornering, which is one of the main things that Beckett looks at. The other thing that you want to do is take your bright light and scan the surface of the card. So what are you looking for in the surface? You're looking for any indentations. You're looking for any damage, any peeling. So right here, you might not be able to see it in the video, but right where my finger is, there's actually a pretty pronounced fingerprint. So sounds silly, but guess what? If there's a fingerprint on the card and then you submit it to grading, they're going to assume that's an imperfection and you're going to get downgraded. So that's why so many people clean their cards before they send it in. And you could do that a number of different ways. There's a lot of people more intelligent around how best to clean a card without damaging it. I'm not going to touch that one. I use the services of the people that submit the card. They're the ones that clean it for me for a very small fee. And I know I don't have to worry about any of the imperfections due to the card being dirty. So I check the corners. I check the surface, front and back. You know, centering, there are some things that can kind of help you identify if the card is perfectly centered. You know, I just want to look for anything that's like widely wrong. So if I took a different card, a Lamar Jackson similar card, you know, and kind of line them up, let's just say for conversation's sake, when I line the cards up, the Lamar was like this. I know it's sticking out, but let's just say all things were equal. I know the card is off center by a little bit, therefore obviously going to get dinged in my grade. Now when it comes to centering, they're talking about like micrometers, right? I mean, very, very small amounts. So there are some tools, once again, to help equip you to determine if your card is best centered. For me, I kind of did the eyeball test, got some advice from a friend, and said, all right, these are the things I'm looking for, and now I know that I'm good. Lastly, you want to check the edges of the card, right? This is especially important in real thick cards because as you turn the edges, there's more potential for damage along the side or discoloration. Once again, those are things that can ding you from getting a really, really high grade when it comes to your cards. So, now that you know a little bit about what to look for, if you look at a card and you determine through your investigation or through an expert's eye that, hey, I think this card can really grade out well, what do you do from there, right? So you pack it into your sleeve, you send it off. How do you make the determination whether to send it to BGS or PSA? So I'll give you what I kind of looked at, right? So let's examine these 4 PSA cards. So here's the deal. When there's no autograph on the card, my personal preference is to do PSA. And I do that because, 1, it's obviously less expensive. 2, I really think most people look at Beckett grading to be better when it comes to autographs. That doesn't necessarily mean a non-autograph card that's graded by Beckett is worse. In fact, here's an Ezekiel Elliott rookie card, holo from Prism, graded 9.5. There's nothing to say that this isn't as great of a grade as, you know, a equivalent card in PSA. But to me, the vast majority of cards that I'm going to get graded with Beckett are going to also include an autograph. So this is actually something I won, not something I sent in to get graded. So you'll notice that all the Beckett submissions that I've had, including the 3 that are up here, were all done because they had autographs to it. So that's the first thing I looked at, right? Now, I did do some autographs. In fact, here's 2. Here's a Marlon Mack 1/1 white sparkle card. And then also a Nyheim Hines college ticket cracked ice signature card. Now, both of these cards got 10, and I knew that they would get 10 because I did my examination and so forth. But here's the interesting thing. If I would have sent them in to PSA to also include a grade for the autographed, I would have been dinged on the Hines. And here's why. If you take a really close look, this is a sticker autograph. There, you can see the sticker really, really well. Look at the top of the N in Nyheim there at the top of the autograph. You notice how the pen mark goes off the sticker there? And almost a little bit of that mark right there and the other part of his name? Because of those 2 things, I would think the autograph would be downgraded if I did this through BGS. So I know right away that I am not sending a card to Beckett if I don't think the autograph is going to get a 10. Because unless the autograph is like super rare, like a Tom Brady or something like that, if it's not a 9 or a 10, especially if it's not a 10, you're really, really going to get dinged on value of the card. So what I did with these 2 is I knew that the sticker autographs probably weren't going to get 10s, so I sent them into PSA just to grade the cards, not the autographs. So they still came back graded as 10s. I know the autographs are authentic because they're guaranteed, so I really, really was happy with the value and the grades that I got in these cards. Now, I also graded some non-autograph cards. So here's an example, once again, of the 10. And then also the blue shimmer version of the Dalvin Cook for my rainbow I sent in, and that only got a 9. So here's the deal. I knew that I probably wasn't going to get a 10 grade on this Dalvin. In fact, actually, I believe there's a small little crease in one of the corners, and that was the reason I knew it wasn't going to get a 10. I still sent it in for grading because I wanted the top 4 cards in my rainbow, the Finite, the blue shimmer, the gold vinyl, and the gold, to all be encased with grading. I just think that adds a coolness element to the rainbow. So I was willing to pay a couple bucks to do that. So that's why I got these guys graded. When it comes to BGS, I did send in a bunch of different cards. And here's the deal. I sent actually about 10 cards. 3 of them came back as 8.5 10s. So 8.5 on the card, 10s on the autograph. All those 8.5 cards I ended up cracking because an 8.5, like I said, that's not going to enhance the value of the card. In fact, actually will detract. So I went to an expert. He basically showed me how to take them out of the slab. It's not something I would do personally, but he was able to do it. And so I was happy to have the card back, and now I don't have to worry about the grade affecting the value. But I did end up grading cards like this Deshaun Watson holograph, rated rookie auto with a really nice on-card autograph there. I knew that on-card obviously was going to get a 10 because the autographs contained in its entirety on the card. There's no weak spots in it, so I knew that was going to be nice. Obviously, I thought Deshaun Watson was going to increase in value. I wish I had the equivalent Patrick Mahomes card and graded that, but I sold all mine. Like I said, the Easy E I won. And then here's an example of a real cool card that I pulled out of a national pack. So I'm not a basketball guy, but here's a sticker autograph from Lonzo Ball. This card is actually out of 5. And I sent it to grading because I was having a real hard time selling the card or getting interest in it. I know part of it is because it's a national, but I was like, Alonzo Ball, he was a real exciting rookie that year, and here's an auto to 5. Why aren't I getting an attraction? So I thought, you know what? If I grade this and it grades out well, I think it might entice a buyer to maybe pick this card up versus anything else that's on the market. So I got a 9, 5, 10. Unfortunately, here it still sits in my collection. So maybe one day this one will get sold, but I was really happy with its grade because I know somewhere down the road I was going to sell that. So that's really the gist of things like what to expect when you grade, what to look for, and so forth, the cost, the time associated with it, and so forth. So what I would implore you to do is ask questions, whether it's to me or to others. Ask as many questions as you can. The people that do the submissions have done them quite a lot, so they're very familiar with what to look for. Actually, when I sent my next batch of submissions to Ryan, I didn't tell him if I wanted it Beckett or PSA. He's now running both. I just said, hey, bud, let's I've seen them. Why don't you look at them too, and let's talk through and figure out what makes the most sense as far as where we think we can get the highest grade. So in general, I would tell you that grading can be expensive and time-consuming, but the look, I really, really think is truly classic. I mean, there's nothing cooler than a really nice graded card. In this case, whether it be something for your PC, something that you're going to put up for sale or on eBay or Twitter, whatever it might be. It's also great for investing. So, for instance, here's a Josh Rosen rookie patch autograph gold vinyl from Spectre. So this is a one-of-one card. Now, why would you need to grade a one-of-one card? There's only one of them, right? There's zero reason to do that. I did it for a couple reasons. One, I knew I wasn't going to sell this card right away. Spectre had a ton of one-on-ones. Other product was coming out. I knew it was going to be something I was going to hold. I want to see how he does next year. I'm hoping he does a lot better because his team wasn't really that great, hence why they had the first draft pick. So I got the card graded. I ended up with a 9-10, which I thought was pretty strong for this. I'll hold on to this. Next year, hopefully he has a better year. Turns out to be a better quarterback. Maybe he has a turnaround kind of like a Mitch Trubisky or something like that. And then I can take a look at whether or not I want to sell the card and so forth. And it'll have a higher enhanced value because it is graded versus if I just kept it in a top load or kept it in a one-touch, somewhere in the back of my collection. Other cards, once again, like the Calvin Ridley Blue Shimmer that I have here, this is a card that's going to go on my PC. I just love it. It's one of my favorite cards in the collection. I don't even care that it's a 9. I mean, I wish it was a 10, but it doesn't matter. It's going to stay with me for a long time. Really just a cool card. So there you have it. You can grade to invest. You can grade for your PC. There's lots of good reasons to do so. I really enjoyed the process. I set aside some funds. I decided to give it a shot. You know, I was very happy with my results. I wish they were all fantastic. I didn't end up getting any 10-10s or anything crazy like that, but I did pretty well. So I hope this video was helpful to you and that you got a chance to learn a little bit about grading cards. Once again, I don't claim to know it all, so in the comments down below, if there's something that you want to add for the betterment of anyone that might watch this video in the future, please throw down your comments. Like I said, I'm happy to share my knowledge and to teach everyone as much as I know. And once again, I hope you learned something. But if you've got something that you want people to learn as well, throw a comment down there, and also don't forget to subscribe. So thanks for checking out this video and for checking out my channel. Stay tuned for more videos, more breaks, lots of other great stuff. This is Mikey B signing off. Have a great night.